This happened just a few weeks ago. I work in a rundown aerospace startup in a ghost town that was once busy with engineers and bright-eyed workers. I'm David, 32 years old, and I've been in the field for almost a decade. On this night, I was the last one in the office. The server hummed quietly, and the dim light flickered anxiously above me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I had been sifting through files when I stumbled on one that was unusually labeled. It was marked encrypted. I knew I shouldn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on it, my heart racing. The first page showed eerie, distorted images. They looked like old photos from the moon. They were dark and grainy, showing craters and structures I didn't recognize. My stomach turned as the dates from 1988 flashed across my mind. I thought to myself, what is this? The next few days were strange. I noticed my coworkers whispering in groups, glancing at me when I entered. I overheard one of them reference the quiet ones. I felt a shiver go down my spine. What did that mean? Maybe it was nothing, but their secrecy felt heavy on my shoulders. Later, I stayed late again. I watched them leave one by one, like they were sneaking out. My heart raced. I knew I should follow them, but fear held me back. I sat down instead, feeling the walls close in around me. The odd behavior didn't stop. Files went missing, meetings were canceled. Every time I brought up the lunar files, my coworkers seemed to shut down. They looked away, as if they knew something I didn't. One night, I saw one of them wandering around in a different part of the office. I stepped out to confront them, but my nerves got the better of me. I decided it was better to watch. They looked scared, their eyes darting around. I felt uneasy. I thought they were tracking something. Days passed with an uneasy tension building. I replayed those bizarre images in my mind. The last thing I wanted was to stir the pot, but I felt like I was missing something. Then I heard the whispers again one late evening. We can't let him find out. It sent a cold chill through me. I leaned back in my chair, my breath shallow. Suddenly, a commotion erupted outside my door. I crept closer, terrified yet curious. David, we need to talk. The voice echoed in the hallway, chilling me to the bone. I whipped around, my heart jumping into my throat. But when I looked, there was no one there. The shadows grew darker, swirling around me. I felt eyes on me, watching. Was I losing my mind? I turned back towards my desk, skin prickling with dread. I didn't want to dig deeper, but I felt I was already trapped. What were they keeping from me? The air felt thicker, as if it were pressing down. I could sense something dark lurking in the shadows, waiting. And even now, I wish I had simply shut the computer down and left that night. But I couldn't shake this feeling. Beneath the surface, something horrific lay hidden, and I might be the only one who could see it. The following night, I returned with my mind racing. I couldn't shake the whispers or the strange, stolen glances from my colleagues. When I stepped into the office, a wave of anxiety washed over me. The room felt empty despite the dim glow of monitors. I approached my desk slowly, determined to make sense of the chaos around me. I opened the encrypted file again. The images were haunting, but this time I noticed something I hadn't before. Among the craters, a faint structure stood out. It looked like a tower or a base. I felt chills as a realization struck me. The file wasn't just a collection of random sightings. It was something calculated. The next morning, I decided to confront one of my coworkers, Lisa. She had been less secretive when we interacted, so I hoped she would talk to me. I approached her at her desk, my stomach in knots. Hey, Lisa, can I ask you something about those lunar files? The others seem off about them. What do you know? Her gaze darted to the doorway and she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. David, you don't want to know too much. Trust me. The quiet ones. Her words trailed off, and I could see a deep fear in her eyes. Before I could press her for more, she looked around again. Just be careful, okay? She stood abruptly and walked away, leaving me stunned. All day, I felt an increasing weight in my chest, like I was missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. As I sat at my desk later that evening, going over the images in my mind, I felt a flash of anger mixed with confusion. Why were they acting this way? What were they afraid of? Then, the lights flickered. I glanced at the hallway. For a split second, I thought I saw a silhouette move past the door. My breath caught. I stood up instinctively, ready to confront whoever was out there. I crept toward the door, heart pounding. As I peered out, the corridor was empty. My instincts told me to turn back, but something compelled me to investigate. I took a few hesitant steps outside. The quiet felt dense, almost suffocating. That's when I heard it, a faint hum like a machine running. It was coming from the storage room at the end of the hall. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to turn back, but a part of me had to know what was happening. I approached the door to the storage room cautiously. It was slightly ajar, and the hum grew louder. Steeling myself, I pushed it open. The inside was dimly lit, but I could see equipment scattered across the floor, wires tangled and dust coating the surfaces. Then I saw it. A metal box, marked with an official seal, stood upright among the junk. I felt a strange pull toward it, as though it carried a truth I desperately needed. I reached out, but just as my fingers brushed against the cold metal, the lights flickered again, and everything went dark. The humming stopped. I was plunged into silence, my heart racing as panic set in. I couldn't see anything. I fumbled for my phone to use as a flashlight. That's when I heard it. A faint whisper coming from behind me. "Don't." I froze, a cold sweat breaking out across my skin. I shifted my gaze slowly, fear coursing through me. Someone, or something, was in here with me. I stood still, barely breathing. The chill of the whisper lingered in the air, sending shivers down my spine. My instinct screamed at me to flee, but curiosity held me captive. I turned my head slightly, trying to detect any movement in the darkness. "Hello?" I managed to choke out. My voice sounded weak even to my own ears. Silence followed, heavy and suffocating. I pointed my phone's light toward the source of the sound. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating shelves filled with dusty boxes and forgotten equipment. But there was no one there, just shadows and the faint outlines of machinery. Another whisper, this time more insistent. "Leave now." My heart raced. The warning echoed in my mind. I couldn't stay here anymore. I had to get out. I took a step back, but as I did, my foot snagged on a wire. I stumbled, the phone slipping from my grip and clattering to the floor. In that brief moment of darkness, my heart thudded loudly against my ribs. I crouched to retrieve the phone, panic rising as my hands fumbled. I finally grasped it and turned the light back on, illuminating the room again. The metal box was now less than a foot away, almost beckoning me. It wasn't a coincidence. I could feel a connection, a pull deeper than just professional interest. I needed to know what was inside, but fear clawed at me. What could I unleash by opening it? With a trembling hand, I reached for the box's lid, but a loud crash echoed from the main office. My heart jumped, and I whipped around, shining the light toward the door. The sound of footsteps echoed, getting louder. "David!" It was Lisa's voice, strained and urgent. "Get out of there!" I froze, torn between the mystery of the box and my growing dread. "What's happening?" I shouted back, the urgency in her tone driving a spike of fear through me. "Just run. You don't understand what you're dealing with." Before I could respond, the footsteps sounded closer, and I could see a shadow moving by the doorway. I didn't want to know who was after me or what consequences awaited. I had to escape. I bolted for the door, heart pounding against my chest. As I rushed past shelves, I felt a sudden gust, as if something cold swept through the room behind me. A faint whisper chased me out. "You can't escape the truth." I didn't look back. I burst into the corridor, blinking against the harsh light of the overheads that flickered back to life. I sprinted toward the exit, not stopping until I reached the staircase. The urge to find Lisa drove me up the stairs and outside to the parking lot, but there was no sign of her. Just the distant hum of machinery and the moon hanging heavy in the sky. The loneliness of the night wrapped around me, and I felt a creeping realization. Whatever secrets lay behind the walls of that building, I was now entangled in them, and there was no going back. As I stood in the parking lot, trembling and out of breath, I noticed something on my phone screen, a notification. It read, "New files received." My stomach churned. The danger wasn't over. It had only just begun. I stood still outside the building, the night air feeling heavy and charged. My phone buzzed in my hand again. Trying to ignore the dread clawing at my insides, I held my breath and tapped the notification. The screen lit up, revealing a list of files with strange code names. My fingers hesitated. I knew I shouldn't dig deeper, but I felt drawn to it. Before I could think, I heard Lisa's frantic voice echoing in my mind. "Get out!" But I couldn't. My curiosity overpowered my fear, and I opened a file labeled Project Selene. As the content loaded, my breath hitched. It was a report detailing odd occurrences from the last few months. Equipment malfunctions, unexplained power fails, and something about personnel disappearing. Then, an image loaded. It was grainy, but the figures in it looked like shadows, twisting and fragmenting in the moonlight. A chill ran down my spine. What had happened here? Suddenly, a loud clanging noise drew my attention. I whipped around, heart racing. I could barely make out a figure moving near the entrance of the building. They were too far away to see clearly, but I caught a glimpse of a silhouette. Whoever it was, they didn't belong here. An overwhelming urge to flee washed over me. I stumbled backward, trying to shake off the fear tightening my chest. Just as I turned, my phone lit up again. I glanced down, and the screen spelled out a chilling message. Warning, risk of exposure. Evacuation recommended. This was getting too real. My legs nearly gave out beneath me, but instinct kicked in. I sprinted towards my car, scanning the parking lot for any signs of Lisa. Where was she? Did she make it out? As I reached my car, panic surged anew because the driver's side door was ajar. I froze, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I knew I had locked it. My hands trembled as I inched closer. I peered inside, trying to see if anyone was hiding. Just as I did, a figure emerged from the shadows behind me. I spun around, heart racing. It was Lisa, her eyes wide and wild, dirt smudged on her face. "David, we need to go now." She tugged at my sleeve. "They're coming." "Who?" I stuttered, the confusion mixing with fear. All I could think about was what I'd just read. The ones behind Project Selene. "They know you're here." Her voice shook, barely controlled. Before I could process what she meant, I heard a distant siren wailing growing louder. My heart sank. This was not just about me anymore. Whatever we had stumbled into was far bigger than I'd imagined. "Get in!" I shouted, scrambling into the passenger seat. We had to leave. But as Lisa raced to the driver's side, I caught a glimpse of something in the distance. Figures emerging from the building, strange and menacing, moving with purpose. That's when I saw it. A light flickering behind them. It looked like the same cold light from inside the building, and to my horror it flickered off, plunging everything into darkness. "Drive!" I shouted, panic erupting in my voice. We couldn't stay here. The truth was closing in on us, and it felt as if it had teeth. The engine roared to life, but Lisa hesitated. I could see her eyes darting to the figures in the distance, assessing their movements. "They're getting closer," I shouted, urgency spilling from my lips. Finally, she slammed her foot down on the accelerator. The car lurched forward, tires screeching against the asphalt. I turned my head, desperate to catch a glimpse of what was behind us. The figures were still there, shadows stretching and twisting under the pale moonlight. They blurred together, making it impossible to distinguish how many there were. "Where do we go?" Lisa asked, her grip tense on the steering wheel. "Anywhere but here," I replied, my voice shaky. I didn't care about the destination. I just needed to put as much distance as possible between us and that building. As we sped down the deserted road, the sirens grew distant, but my pulse didn't. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was tracking us. I fished my phone from my pocket, trying to find any sort of signal. "I have to tell someone what's happening," I muttered, tapping through the notifications. "David, focus! We can't afford to get caught up in this," Lisa warned, darting glances at the rearview mirror. My voice faltered as I noticed something on the screen. Another notification lit up. "Active pursuit detected." What? The words barely escaped my mouth before I heard a loud thump on the roof of the car. What was that? I don't know, Lisa yelled, swerving as she glanced up. The car swayed off the road momentarily, but she regained control. My heart raced as I looked out the side window. In the darkness, I caught a glimmer, a flash like the light from the building, but closer. A chill ran down my spine as I turned back to Lisa. We need to get off the road. No, she shouted. We need to keep going, but I could see what she couldn't. The trees ahead were thick and the road forked. Turn left, I insisted, my voice growing more frantic. It felt like the only way to lose them. She hesitated but then complied, veering hard to the left. The tires kicked up gravel as we sped into the darkness of the forest. The tension hung between us, thick like fog. I could barely breathe. The air felt tight in my chest. If those shadows were still following us, I could only imagine what they wanted. Just as we rounded a bend, Lisa slammed on the brakes. The tires skidded to a halt beside a narrow stream. What now? She panted, scanning the surroundings. I squinted into the trees. We hide, I said, although I wasn't sure where we could go. I had a bad feeling. The stillness around us felt wrong. But then, a rustling noise broke the silence. I turned my head sharply. From the dense underbrush, two glowing eyes emerged, piercing through the darkness. What is that? Lisa whispered, barely keeping her voice steady. I didn't get the chance to respond. As the figure stepped into the dim light, it was clear that it was no ordinary animal. We were not alone. I strained to see through the dim light. The figure took another step forward, and I felt a wave of dread wash over me. It was tall, much taller than any person, with limbs that seemed to stretch unnaturally. A silhouette draped in shadows, its features were concealed, but those eyes, they seemed to burn with an otherworldly glow. David, what do we do? Lisa's voice shook, and I could almost hear her heart racing alongside mine. I forced my gaze away from the strange figure to scan the area for potential escape routes. The trees towered around us, thick and foreboding. There was no clear path but back to the road. I considered the water behind us. Maybe we can slip down the stream, I offered, uncertain if it was a good idea. The creature stepped closer, and I could feel the air grow colder. I hadn't expected it to move at all. We had been hoping for cover, but there was none. What if it's dangerous? Lisa whispered, her face pale. That's a risk we have to take, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We can't just sit here. Another rustle behind us sent a jolt of fear through me, and I turned quickly. Suddenly, from the opposite direction, more shadows emerged, each one larger than the last, their eyes glinting with the same eerie luminescence. My heart raced as I tried to think. We need to go now, I urged, grabbing her hand and leading her toward the stream. As we made our way, the strange creature let out a low growl. It echoed through the trees. The sound sent shivers down my spine. I glanced back just in time to see it lunge. Run! I shouted, adrenaline fueling my legs as we plunged into the icy water. The stream was shallow but fast. I could feel the current tugging at my feet, but I didn't dare look back. Lisa followed closely, splashes resonating in the chilling night air. What are they? She gasped, trying to keep her footing. I don't know, I shouted, urgency cutting through my fear. We have to keep moving. The trees loomed larger as we fought against the current, pushing our way through the water. I glanced behind us. The creatures were prowling at the edge of the forest, watching, but they didn't seem ready to follow us into the water. We waded deeper, catching our breaths. Where do we even go? Lisa asked, fear lacing her voice. The stream bent to the right, and I noticed there was a narrow path on the bank. There, I pointed. Let's get to the shore. We steadied ourselves on the muddy ground, panting and dripping. My mind raced. We might have evaded them, at least for now, but I knew they were still out there. We needed to find shelter and a way to contact someone. That's when I saw it, a flicker of light up ahead breaking through the trees. David? Lisa asked cautiously, her expression a mixture of hope and dread. I felt a surge of determination. We have to check it out, I said, taking a step toward the source. Every instinct told me it could lead us to safety. But deep down, something whispered that we might find even more danger waiting for us. We moved slowly, retracing our steps into the shadows, with nothing but uncertainty guiding us forward. As we crept toward the light, it flickered like a beacon through the thick trees. I tensed, uncertain about what we might find. Were there more creatures? Or could it be someone who could help? I squinted as we approached, trying to get a clearer view. The light was streaming from a small clearing lined with rocks. In the center, an abandoned cabin stood, its window glowing softly as if inviting us in. The sight was both comforting and terrifying. I hesitated. What if it's a trap? I asked Lisa, my voice barely above a whisper. I'd rather take my chances there than out here, she replied, glancing nervously back toward the trees. We need to get away from those things. I nodded, knowing she was right. We stepped cautiously toward the cabin, every crack of a twig sounding louder than thunder. As we crossed the threshold, I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. Inside, the air was musty and cool. Moonlight filtered through the grime-covered windows, illuminating a sparse interior. Only a rickety table and a couple of wooden chairs cluttered the space, and dust coated every surface. But oddly, the flickering light came from a battered lantern resting on the table, its flame barely holding on. I wiped my damp hands on my jeans and took a deep breath. Let's find out what's going on here, I said, though my voice shook a little. We moved further in, the creaking floorboards beneath our feet echoing into the night. Lisa peered out of the window, eyes darting nervously. I don't see them, she said, her breath hitching. But I don't like this. Yeah, we should just check for anything useful and get out. I shuffled to the table and picked up the lantern, trying to get it to shine brighter. Then I noticed a map spread out next to it. David, look at this, Lisa called softly. She was standing near an old bookshelf packed with dusty books. These are all weird, like they're about conspiracy theories or something. I turned away from the map and walked over. The titles were bizarre. The Moon Landing Hoax, Hidden Life on Mars, Secrets of the Dark Side of the Moon. I shivered. This is disturbing. She picked up one of the books, flipping through the pages, and suddenly paused. Wait, listen to this, she said, her voice trembling slightly. It says here there have been sightings of creatures, those things we saw, linked to moon conspiracies since 1988. A chill crept down my spine. What do you mean, like they're connected somehow? Yeah, Lisa murmured, her brows furrowed in concentration. It says people have claimed to see them after lunar missions. What if they're watching us? Before I could respond, a loud bang echoed from outside, causing us both to jump. The door rattled on its hinges as if something was trying to force its way in. My heart raced, and I glanced around the cabin for something, anything, that could serve as a weapon. David! Lisa whispered urgently, fear washing over her face. What do we do? As the sound of claws scraping against the door filled the air, I knew we needed to act fast. We had to understand what we were up against, and fast. Then, as if in answer to my thoughts, the lantern flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. Stay close, I hissed, panic rising. We couldn't afford to be caught unaware. The darkness felt thick around us, every sound amplified. I strained to hear the scratching, my mind racing to recall any details about the creatures we'd seen. What were they? Are they smart? The weight of the unknown pressed heavily on me. Look for something to barricade the door, I whispered to Lisa, trying to keep my voice steady. We were running out of time. I crept toward the edge of the table in search of anything heavy enough to use. Here! Lisa found an old wooden chair and tugged it over, setting it against the door just as another thud resounded, making the walls rattle. My heart raced, and I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. I felt around the table for something, anything that could help us fend off whatever was out there. My fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. I pulled it out, a small, rusty crowbar. It felt heavy in my hands, almost reassuring. Then I remembered the map I'd seen earlier. That map might show us a way out of here, I said, trying to keep the desperation from my voice. If those things get in... Lisa looked at me with wide, frightened eyes, and turned toward the table where the map lay. Right, Just grab it. Her voice was tense and urgent, barely masking her fear. With the crowbar in one hand, I reached for the map with the other, not wanting to take my eyes off the door. Just then the banging stopped, replaced by a low growl that sent chills down my spine. "David!" Lisa gasped, pointing toward the window. I turned to look and caught a glimpse of a creature, its eyes glowing in the moonlight. It was crouched low, muscles coiling like a spring. "We need to get out of here now," I shouted, gathering my courage. I quickly shoved the map into my pocket and tightened my grip on the crowbar. "What if the front door is our only escape?" Lisa asked, her mind racing. "I don't think they'll stop banging. They'll get in." "The back," I realized suddenly, rushing toward the rear door of the cabin. "We need to find another way out." We turned, and the sound of the door splintering filled the air. The creature was relentless. With a swift motion, I kicked the back door, and it flew open. A forest loomed beyond, but we needed to move. "Run!" I yelled as we dashed into the night, the trees closing in around us like dark shadows. We could hear the growl behind us. It echoed, a haunting promise that they wouldn't let us go easily. Panic surged through me. My mind raced with thoughts of what they wanted and why they were here. Was it something we had stumbled upon? Some knowledge we shouldn't have uncovered? Then, as we sprinted into the underbrush, I caught something out of the corner of my eye. A flicker of light. Another cabin? Or perhaps it was something more. The thought sent a jolt of curiosity through me, battling with the fear of what chased us. "David, keep moving," Lisa urged, pulling me back to reality. I nodded, knowing that whatever lay ahead, we had no choice but to face it. With each step, I felt our chances of survival slipping away. But in that moment, I couldn't help but wonder just how deep this conspiracy went, and what secrets had been buried since 1988. As we plunged deeper into the forest, the sounds behind us faded, but were quickly replaced by our own pounding hearts. The thick underbrush snagged at our legs, branches clawing at our clothes. I glanced back, but all I could see was darkness, the glowing eyes gone. Had they lost our scent, or were they simply stalking us from the shadows? "David!" Lisa gasped, her breath coming in quick bursts. "What if we just keep running until we find help?" I didn't know the answer. All I could think about was the flicker of light I had seen. "There could be another cabin up ahead," I shouted over my shoulder, trying to push down the fear creeping up my spine. We veered left, towards the light that danced in the distance like a distant star. I gripped the crowbar tighter, ready to use it if needed. As we approached, the shape of the cabin came into view. A small, dilapidated structure, its windows dark. I felt a mix of hope and dread. "Should we check it out?" Lisa hesitated, glancing behind us. "What if those things follow us?" We had little choice. "It's better than being out here in the open," I replied, swallowed by adrenaline. "If it's abandoned, maybe we can find something useful." As we neared the cabin, I noticed something unsettling. There were signs of life. A flickering candle flickered in one window, casting strange shadows. A chill went through me. Who would be out here in the middle of nowhere? I exchanged a worried look with Lisa. "We should at least take a peek," I suggested, knowing we were already taking a risk. Slowly we approached the door, and I tried the handle. It turned easily, and I pushed it open, wincing as it creaked ominously. Inside, the air was thick with dust and something else, a faint metallic tang that made my instincts flare. I stepped inside, the crowbar raised. The candle flickered on a small table, illuminating a stack of papers haphazardly strewn about. "Look at those," Lisa whispered, pointing to the papers. I moved closer, squinting to read the titles. "They're dated," I murmured as I picked one up. Sure enough, it was dated 1988. Each document referred to strange occurrences, missing people, odd sightings in the woods, and references to experiments. "What the hell is all of this?" I asked, feeling a mix of fascination and dread. The growl of your average predator was one thing, but I sensed something deeper, something connected to this cabin and the horrors we'd just fled. Suddenly, a noise pulled me back to reality. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate. My heart raced and I immediately shoved the papers back down. I glanced at Lisa, panic widening her eyes. Before we could make a plan, the door creaked open and a figure stepped inside, shrouded in shadow. "Who's there?" I shouted, brandishing the crowbar. The figure froze, hands raised. It was a man, dirty and wild-eyed. "Don't shoot! I'm not one of them!" The panic rose again. Was he friend or foe? "What do you know about those things?" I demanded, hoping that he wasn't another piece in this twisted puzzle. He stepped into the candlelight, and I could see the fear in his gaze. "You shouldn't be here," he said with urgency. "They're hunting you. We need to move. Now." The hairs on my neck stood on end. I had so many questions, but one thought screamed the loudest. I wasn't prepared for what might happen next. The man's words hung in the air, thick with urgency. I gripped the crowbar tighter, eyeing him with skepticism. "Who are you?" I asked, glancing at Lisa for confirmation that I wasn't overreacting. Her eyes mirrored my distrust, but also sparked with curiosity, as if she sensed something was off but wanted to know more. "Name's Aaron. I've been hiding from them for weeks," he said, his voice ragged but firm. "They're not just shadows. There's a purpose behind them. You're in danger. You need to leave now." I looked past him and into the dark woods. A faint rustling promised the creatures were still out there, possibly regrouping. "What do you know about that building? What's Project Selene?" I pressed, hoping for answers but bracing for more confusion. Aaron's face hardened. "It's not just a project. It's a cover-up." He glanced nervously at the door, as if expecting the shadows to claw their way inside. "They've been studying something. Something connected to the moon results from lunar exploration. It's been happening since those missions in '88. They're not just experiments. They're trying to control what they uncovered." "Control what?" Lisa asked, her voice a mix of hope and terror. She was hanging on to every word like a lifeline. "Creatures that exist beyond our perception. They can manipulate and take form, and they're drawn to the sight." Aaron took a breath, as if mustering the courage to continue. "They need energy, a specific type. People who go missing are never really gone. They become part of whatever they're tapping into." I glanced at Lisa, her eyes wide as she processed this horrifying information. "And they want us too? For what reason?" My voice trembled, both from fear and disbelief. "Energy," he said, nodding gravely. "You've stumbled into something dangerous that goes beyond mere conspiracy theories. It's real, and it's hunting you." He turned to face the door again, his expression suddenly fierce. "We don't have time. They'll come. If you want a chance, if you want to get out, follow me." Before I could respond, a loud crash erupted from outside, followed by the unmistakable sound of claws scraping against wood. My instincts kicked in. "We can't stay here," I yelled, moving towards the back of the cabin. "What now?" Lisa's voice wavered, but she followed, her determination flickering like the dying candlelight. "Come on," I urged. We dashed toward the rear, where Aaron pointed to a back door. I shoved it open, leading us into a world cloaked in darkness. We raced out, the night air cool against my sweating skin. In the distance, shadows moved among the trees, dark figures shifting, melding into one another like smoke. "Stay close," I shouted, pushing through the underbrush, my heart pounding. As we weaved deeper into the woods, a piercing shriek broke through the night, chilling my bones. I dared not look back. "What are those things?" I gasped, breathless. "They're drawn to fear, to curiosity," Aaron hurled over his shoulder, an edge of urgency in his voice. "It's when you doubt yourself that they take hold." "Doubt," I echoed, but as I glanced around, the shadows, the whispers, the feeling of being watched, I could feel that doubt creeping in to smother me. The path twisted and thickened around us, branches snagging at our clothes as if nature itself was trying to stop us. "We need to find higher ground," Aaron declared, breaking into a sprint. "They can't follow us if we can get above." We pushed on, scrambling over roots and rocks, the underbrush yielding begrudgingly to our desperate flight. As we finally reached a small ridge, my lungs burned with exhaustion. I turned to see the outlines of the shadow creatures clawing through the trees, but they paused, uncertainty hanging in the air like a breath held too long. "Up here," Aaron commanded, urging us toward a tree that sprawled out over the edge of the drop, its branches thick enough to climb. Lisa scrambled after him, and I hesitated for a moment, scanning the shadows below. "David!" Lisa shouted, panic lacing her voice. The trees writhed, shadows writhing as one of the creatures exhibited an unnatural speed, darting toward us. I climbed up after them, the bark rough and splintering against my palms. The height felt like safety. We perched on a thick branch, the darkness below now a swirling abyss. "What now?" I panted, trying to catch my breath. Aaron looked down, eyes narrowing. "They can't jump this high," he said, although his voice trembled with uncertainty. "Not yet. But we're not out of the woods. We need to stay quiet." I gripped the branch as the sounds of low growls and whispers filled the air around us. They moved below, circling our position, their forms becoming hazy silhouettes in the dim light. "Why?" I asked, my throat dry. "What do they want?" "They want answers," Aaron replied cryptically, his gaze fixed on the furtive shadows. "They want to know who knows too much, and they want to consume those who dare to uncover it." For a moment, everything fell silent. Uneasy, I squeezed my eyes shut. Would morning bring relief or more shadows? I didn't know. I could feel the weight of the night pressing down around us, thick with uncertainty. Each second felt like a step closer to a precipice I couldn't define. Hours passed, the darkness mingling with suspense. I held on tight, my thoughts flitting to the unanswered questions about Project Selene and the truth behind all we had seen. If we got out of this, would it matter? Would we ever know? The shadows began to fade into the forest, the night swallowing them whole. It felt like we were being released from something, but whether that was a good or bad omen, I couldn't tell. I glanced at Lisa, her expression lost in thought. Aaron continued to peer into the dark, vigilant and watchful, but the unease settled over me, the knowledge that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Eventually, the first hints of dawn began creeping over the treetops, as if it hesitated to break the uneasy calm. Whatever lurked in the darkness would still be there. We hadn't escaped. It felt like we had only changed the game. In that moment, I mulled over one chilling thought. Even if we got away from the creatures, we carried the specter of their whispers, curiosity, danger, and an unfamiliar truth. I wasn't sure if I wanted to know more, or if the answers would haunt me forever. "Let's go," Aaron finally said, breaking the spell of silence. "It's not safe here anymore." And so, we began the long, disorienting trek back through the forest, uncertain of what lay ahead. But one thing was clear. We weren't merely pawns in this game anymore. We were inextricably linked to its dark essence, forever carrying questions that might never find answers.